Hello, welcome to New Meta, a Dota 2 podcast. Today, we're talking about how to play a bad lane, amongst many other things. Joining me for this episode, no Marco, he's off on another foreign trip, living the life of Riley, so instead, we've got guest Nick back for a second iteration. How are you?
I'm good, glad to be back. Glad to show once more why I should be on the show more and Marco less. I'll do my best to fill in.
Building a strong case of evidence. And also joining us, as always, this man doesn't miss a pod. It's Adam. How are you?
I'm good. 100% attendance achieved.
How's Dota been for you, Adam?
I have not. I got to play some games for the first time yesterday. My brother got married over the weekend, so it was not Dota weekend.
It's probably a valid excuse not to play.
Yeah. I'm excited to play again though.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes you need a little break for you to be like, why is Dota good? When you've been playing for ages, it's like becomes almost like a default. But when you've been away from it, it's like, oh, to be fair, I am looking forward to playing again.
Yeah, I had like a 5-day break, which is pretty
long. I can only imagine. So just a few little housekeeping things to say. In the last episode, I said join the Discord and we'll put the link in the description. And then I didn't put the link in the description. So I will put it in the description this time.
That's a ban.
I know, yeah. So yeah, look out for that and join it. It's growing. Every day I'd say we get another person probably after the initial explosion. It's a lot of fun, good Dota talk, questions and stuff. Also, in relation to the Discord, we're going to be starting to do basically party stack evenings. This is still in planning stage, but at the moment it's a tight battle between Tuesday and Wednesday as our weekly meet time. TBD, which one of those it will be, and it will probably start next week, I imagine. So get in the Discord and see the pinned message, and we'll basically be giving updates on that. So we're definitely looking forward to that. Hopefully get some 5v5s, right? I mean,
yeah, we'll either do party games, or if we get to the mythical 10, we can do some in-houses.
Oh, yeah.
In-house 5v5s are so fun.
We can lane against Marco and kill him, and somebody else will have to deal with him buying back.
Oh, goodness, yeah. That's going to be amazing. What was the famous matchup? What was it? Legend Ursa. I'll just pick Ursa against his famous Puck, and we'll see what happens.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's in-house news. Also, we've got a new schedule. Not going to start for like a week, but basically we're going to be uploading every Friday. So before now, we've just been uploading sort of randomly once or twice a week. But going forward, Friday is going to be release day. And we're going to be doing weekly episodes. And then we'll do another sort of bi-weekly episode, probably on a Tuesday. So we're aiming for 3 episodes a fortnight, basically. So, but definitely Friday every week. So that's good. So we've got a schedule sorting out. Finally starting to get our bearings together. And finally, website, watch this space. That's basically all I can say because this is in its infancy. But we're gonna try and get a cool looking website. So, with that said, how to play a bad lane. First of all, what is a bad lane? What makes a bad lane?
Well, I was just thinking you could interpret this a different way. A bad lane as in like you picked bad heroes. But that's just I was thinking back to my Coddle Doom lane, and that's technically a bad lane, but it went really well. But anyways, yeah, I guess the classic sense is that you lose the lane, right? It's out of either you get zoned out by the other side spamming you with spells or auto attacks. Maybe they're a Wind Ranger and they have really nice trading capabilities, really nice auto attack animations that you can't deal with, or base damage. Or maybe they just have really nice kill potential, and they just, instead of war of attrition, making you eat a bunch of tangos or regen, they just kill you.
Yeah. The gist of it is basically that they're getting more gold and XP out of the laning stage than you. Effectively, that means you've lost the lane, as it were. If you're an off laner and the enemy carry is not even vastly, is just out leveling you and out CSing you, then you're losing the lane. That's pretty much how it goes. And like you say, those are basically the two reasons how it can happen. I know in the Discord someone was talking about Prophet. I don't know if we were around for that. Someone was talking about playing Position 3 Prophet. And I know that in terms of war of attrition, not few things worse than a Blightstone Prophet as one of the banes of laning in Dota.
Plus all the treants smacking you.
I know, yeah. With all getting their physical amped from the minus armor. Feels bad.
And even if you do harass him down a bit, he just heads on home and comes right back to the lane at a cheap cost.
Yeah. So that's basically what a bad lane is. And look, you can pick your way into a bad lane. You can play your way into a bad lane too. But you can also play your way out of a bad lane. And that's what we're basically going to try and give some tips and stuff for today.
I think we've all had bad lanes before. It's a universal Dota experience.
Oh, for sure.
And usually in like a game, any game, one of your three lanes isn't going to be great matchup wise.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the game, unless you do all random.
Yeah.
We've had all those all random draft wins, basically.
It's funny because I feel like we're a bit spoilt now in the 2-1-2 meta that we've seen in the last sort of year and a bit. Because back in the day, the off lane basically was a losing lane, almost guaranteed, right?
Oh, it used to be a scary place.
Yeah. But now it feels like you have the opportunity to win every lane rather than just default losing, quote unquote, the off lane because you know it's going to be a 3v1. But now it's not the case anymore. So I suppose that's just an interesting observation. So, in terms of dealing with a bad lane, what do you think we should say straight off the bat? Like, know your limits, sort of thing. Use your spells.
Don't feed. Don't die.
Don't feed.
I mean, yeah. Let's see. You should use spells. You should use your mana, but maybe the way you use it isn't typical. Maybe you're not trying to kill. Maybe you're not trying to kill the enemy with your spells. Maybe you're just trying to secure some CS with it.
Yeah. Because if you visualize a bad lane, right, you're not able to walk up to the creeps. So I'm just thinking like a side lane. You're not able to walk up to the creeps and hit them. You're zoned out, right? Because that's one of the situations we're in. Either you're dying or you're being zoned out. And so you need to use your spells, PA dagger, spec dagger, even supports throwing out their spells like shaman, ether shock and stuff like that from distance, from trees to try and get what little you can. Because something's better than nothing. So when we're saying use spells, that's pretty much what we mean, right?
Yeah, you have no kill potential, so why would you use your spells to try and kill the enemy hero when you can't? You might as well use them for maximum efficiency for what you can get, which is a little bit of XP and gold.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, don't feed, right? Dying is really bad, and that's one surefire way to compound a bad lane is if you die over and over again. There are few things feel worse in Dota than dying with your TP on cooldown and having to walk back to lane without boots. That is one of the saddest things.
Minute 3.
Yeah.
That's a big feels bad.
Yeah.
Especially if you're the carry. If you work so hard to get the wave in a good spot, and then you die, and then you come back to lane and your support is 2 levels ahead of you because they got all the solo XP from your hard work.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in the same vein of this, if we're talking about safe laners, or side lanes, you should be pulling the creeps to you. Getting the aggro from right clicking the enemy and pulling it, so you can secure the CS, or at least in terms of a safe laner, you're pulling the wave closer to your tower, so you're able to more safely attempt the last hit. If you keep it right outside that tower range, and you might, doing that normally puts your range creep at risk to be denied, but that's where the support comes in to help you try and secure it. It doesn't matter who gets it as long as it doesn't get denied.
Yeah, and you can do some shenanigans in terms of aggroing creeps. You can aggro them back like a long way. It to the point where you can split up the creep wave, and that's golden for a weak lane, is to split up the creeps, so that in your situation where you pull the creeps to your range creep, often the enemy, whether they mean it or not, will aggro your creeps to their range creep, and suddenly there's a swarm of melee creeps around either range creep. If you just pull again as your creep dies, the enemy creeps will follow you rather than moving back to the other melees, and then you've suddenly got a split wave, right? And that's, like I said, you can pull it under your tower for like super safe CS. There's all sorts of aggro shenanigans you can do.
Is it worth explaining for all the listeners how exactly you do pull a creep wave? We're not talking about pulling creeps from the jungle, but when your dire creeps meet radiant creeps, how you pull the enemy creeps towards you.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. You mean just go on. You
drawing creep aggro. So how it works in Dota, it comes from Dota 1, which was in Warcraft 3, is if you're, I don't know the exact mechanics, but if you're near enemy creeps and you right-click an enemy hero, the enemy creeps realize or think that you're trying to aggro their team. So instead of fighting the other creeps, they decide to turn on you. And so once they turn on you, you can take a step back and you can use it to pull the creeps away from where the creep equilibrium was to a more preferable place where you can hopefully farm them.
Yeah. And in layman's terms, in shorthand, it's just right-click an enemy hero and creeps will chase after you.
Yeah, right-click an enemy hero when you're near the creeps.
You can even do that. You can look at a hero in a different lane and right-click them.
Yeah, it's funny.
You can right-click any hero on the map.
Yeah, and typically there should be a hero in your lane for you to click on, and it's a very useful thing to employ. It just saves you. If you have ranged heroes as your enemy, it's going to save you probably 2 or 3 right clicks from the enemy just off of one aggro trick.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Right, and often your creep wave will then often turn on the enemy hero because it's the nearest thing for them to attack. And so rather than the enemy hero trying to harass you down or to kill you, they have to deal with these creeps which are right-clicking them. So it just buys you those extra few seconds as well as those extra few meters of space.
So I was saying also for mid as well, a general rule of thumb, and I say this tentatively because in Dota, rules of thumb are just, it doesn't take you long to think of an example where it doesn't apply. But as a general rule of thumb, if you're a melee hero that's going up against a ranged hero, and in fact you could probably extrapolate this to any lane, but if you're a melee hero going up against a ranged hero, it's probably a good idea for you to aggro the creeps towards you and towards your tower and towards your range creep, because it just sort of increases the amount of distance that the enemy needs to cover to be able to right-click or to be able to attack every single creep in the lane, because it sort of stretches out a bit, if you understand what I mean. It's hard to explain this without a visual element, but
they have to walk further.
They have to walk further, exactly, yeah. And if you're a melee hero, that's good, right? Because the ranged enemy is going to be able to harass you a lot. So if they have to walk back and forth a little bit, and they have to walk into the middle of the creeps, because that's another thing that's worth saying is, in terms of trading, if you try and right-click an enemy to harass them and you're taking damage from creeps, that's going to be bad news for you. So if you draw aggro onto your range creep as a melee hero, often the enemy ranged hero will have to take damage if they want to right-click you, because they have to walk through creeps to do so.
Yeah, creeps really hurt early game. So make sure you know how resistant you are to creeps and potentially how resistant the enemy is to creeps. You can take advantage of that.
Especially if you don't have a stout shield.
Yeah.
And then even so, we were saying if like in the mid lane, if you're doing the aggro thing, the creep aggro thing, you can keep the wave kind of on your hill. It's kind
Or
of,
even pull it down from the enemy hill.
yeah,
Both
yeah.
are
You
big
want to
deals.
try and keep it to your side of the river as much as possible, just for safety.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why people block, right? That's why people block their creeps, is to get creeps in the best possible position, and not a mid being your own ramp. So the moving the creeps into that position after the initial block is just as important. That's just sort of like something that you'll learn, with experience and with playing, like aggroing creeps to get them in good positions. It's super useful, and probably the most useful if you're in a bad lane, because each creep becomes that much more important, and so getting them in the right position to CS becomes paramount. So that's a good tip in terms of moving the creeps.
And then what comes with that is either there's two different things you can do. You can pull the creeps into the tower, and so that means you need to know how to last hit under a tower.
Yep.
Melee heroes are better because they generally have higher damage, especially with a quelling blade, to be able to last hit under tower. So if you can pull it into your tower and last hit like all the creeps, you've done well.
Yeah.
And that's a good skill to have. But then the other way of doing this is kind of goes in tandem with if your support was pulling, maybe, is tanking the wave outside of the tower range. So you're keeping the equilibrium of the wave right outside your tower, but you're tanking the creeps. Generally, you do this while you're eating like a tango or salving up, because you can tank, especially with a stout shield, you can tank the wave for a pretty long period of time and keep it close to the tower while also denying XP from the enemy.
But
go ahead.
I was going to say, getting back slightly to the topic on hand, if you're in a losing lane where you're really under threat of dying, then you won't have time, or you won't have the space to tank your creep away from tower. And in that case, it's better to take the creeps under the tower and get what CS you can, even if you miss some, rather than not being able to get any, or even potentially dying in a really tough lane.
Yeah, exactly. That's just what I was about to say as well. You have to make the judgment of, is this lane losing enough where I have to take my creeps under the towers or I'll die? Or is it in a position where actually perhaps I'm a ranged hero and I can have an equilibrium in this spot just outside my tower and I can CS safely?
Or if you're like a lifestealer, you're going to be feasting on the creeps, so you can tank for a long time. Wraith King with lifesteal if you have that skilled. And then generally what happens is the enemy's going to be like, whoa, where'd the wave go? And they're going to go investigate the pool. And so you can tank outside the tower range. But I definitely would not tank outside the tower range if they're just sitting there harassing you, because you're just going to get stunned. And if you get stunned and you're taking like 4 creep hits plus right clicks, I mean, you're going to die very fast.
Yeah. It's worth pointing out as well, there's many reasons why your own tower is a safe area, and it extends beyond the fact that there's something like a cannon dealing loads of damage to creeps and heroes that go under it. Also, just being that close for like TP rotations, it's 10 times if you imagine a side lane with the creeps equilibrium around the side shop area, and say the one side is going to dive the other, it's 10 times easier for them to kill you with no risk to themselves from that position than them trying to do the same dive, but the creeps are up against the enemy tower. Because you can get TP rotations, the armor, you get a big armor bonus if you're under your own tower. So it's beyond just the fact that there's a big cannon doing damage. There's many reasons why having the creeps near your own tower is beneficial. So that's something just to like bear in mind.
Yeah, and it's not even so much the TPing in. I mean, they have to TP in and then walk a certain distance to help you. So if you're at the enemy tower, I mean, it's like 2.5 seconds from the TP there, and then they got to walk
all the way,
for another 4 seconds because they probably don't have boots or something,
Yeah.
So definitely, if the wave, the equilibrium isn't really in your favor, it's going to be pretty discouraging for TP rotations.
Speaking about TP rotations, if you think that the enemy is so strong that they have kill potential under your tower, then get on your push the talk button in your mic, or even type it. Let your team know that you might get dived and they should be ready to TP. Like a quick TP, especially in a pub where team coordination is not always great, a quick TP in a pub can make all the difference and turn around what would have been a death into a kill.
Yeah, definitely. And laning's a fragile situation. Just a kill in a lane can be so much of a game changer, like you say. While we're on the topic of creep manipulation, as it were, should we give a bit of credence to what used to be the standard of pulling the wave, particularly as an offlaner, but you can do it from anywhere. It's actually kind of funny that they patched this out. Like, it's so weird that you can't draw aggro off the first wave. It's so bizarre, but I suppose it was necessary because there was about a 3-month period where every offlaner was just running in between.
It was
the tier 1 and
ridiculous.
2. It was so bizarre, yeah. But yeah, after the first wave, you can. Oh, actually, I need to remember to come back and talk about going for level 1 ganks. But yeah, sorry. After the first wave, you can aggro an enemy wave from anywhere. So a lot of the time, if you're crushed, particularly if say you're a solo offlaner or something, and you're just crushed, you can't do anything. Sometimes it's really good actually to just walk and catch the enemy creep wave as it's walking out to lane before it's even got to your creeps. And you see this a lot in high level games, and literally just the creeps will just follow you wherever you go, so you can take it under your own tower, take it on however long route you want to go, and take it to a safe area. That's one of those, you see sometimes you see axes level their spin and just catch the creeps as they come out of the base and just kill them off, getting perfect
double
XP.
stout shield or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's something to bear in mind. That's always an option.
Yeah, what's good about that is if you can pull the wave and reconnect it either between your tier 1 or tier 2 or outside of your tier 1.
Yeah, you can get denies that way, which is huge. One thing that is pretty funny, because the creeps don't aggro you at level 1, I've seen in some pro games and stuff where people will like dive if they know they've got a really strong lane at level 1. Beyond just contesting the runes, they'll actually like dive the enemy heroes between the tier 1 and 2 because they know that the creeps can't hit them.
Oh,
they
yeah.
just walk straight past. So often you can like force a TP and weird stuff like that.
Yeah, certain heroes can be really good at that. If you have heroes with kind of persistent slows or really good early kill potential, like I guess I'm thinking of Dazzle, where if you come on Dazzle and plus one other hero and use your poison touch on them, and you constantly get those right clicks, and their creep just ignore you, and they happily march on past.
Yeah,
you can really put some hurt on the enemy carry because there's so much space there that you can run them down.
And conversely, just to flip it around so it more in line with our topic, if that's happening to you, and you're sort of being dived and zoned not only out of your own bounty runes but sort of all the way back, there's nothing wrong with sticking under your tier 2 tower and TPing to the tier 1 tower. That's what pros have done in the games that I've seen. So don't feel like you're wasting a TP just to sort of cover 1,000 units, because that 1,000 units will probably get you killed. So if you need to, you can just TP to your tier 1.
It could also be a good time for a lane swap if that's what you realise you need to be able to get the most out of your lanes before the laning stage is properly started. Everyone has TPs. It's a great time to switch it up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You can even do sneaky things as a Darkseer, like that level 1 wave. You can just throw an Ion Shell on the wave and it will be damaging it, and the creeps won't aggro you.
Yeah. Also, and this is one of the stupidest things. This isn't really a piece of advice. It's just something that's funny that you can do. You can actually block you can run and block the enemy's wave because it won't attack you. So you literally block their wave for them. So your wave goes under their tower, dies, and then their wave doubles up and pushes under your tower. Can you?
I don't think I've ever seen that. Sounds
Can you?
like
Do you know
how
what?
would you do that?
Yeah. Can you vision? Do you know what I'm trying to portray? It sounds.
I know
bit
what
weird.
you're trying to say, but like, how would you not get hit by the tower?
Oh no, you don't do it. You just do it. So you run to the enemy tier 2. So this happen. This offlaners do this because it's a bit easier. So you run to the enemy tier 2 basically. Wait for them to go past the tower, and then you block their creeps as they go between their tier 2 and their tier 1.
Yeah.
Because, so this is an offlane thing to do. The normal equilibrium is so close to the safe lane tower.
Right.
You only have to block them a little bit, and your creeps will go under their tower. Wow. And then that means that the equilibrium will push, way into you. So that's like a little stupid thing that I've seen a couple of times. It's kind of funny.
I have not seen that. I'd be afraid of feeding.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely...
Sounds very risky for not that much reward, but good for meme DotA.
Yeah, so I've only seen it in pro games where it's like a executed strategy that they're going for. I'd say keep out of pubs, probably. Yeah. That's one for the party stack, eh? That's one for the in-house.
We'll try that, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's my team's strat. We're going to look at lane specifics. So mid are things you can do if you're losing mid, losing your off lane, or losing your safe lane. But before we do, a more general point on laning is don't worry if you're losing lanes. And the only reason I say this is because I've had a couple of recent games, in fact one of them was today, that demonstrated the fact that some heroes are designed to win lanes and be weaker later. The classic old saying about Viper's a different hero now, but back in the day, people used to say win lane, lose games, because Viper would crush any mid matchup and then be pretty useless going into the later game. And I had one like this today with Batrider mid. In fact, it's bizarre. I've had 2 Batrider mids today in 4 games. That's not right.
That's rare.
Yeah, that's super rare, Bat mid. But yeah, we had a Bat mid versus our Storm Spirit, and Bat crushed the lane. It was like 3 levels ahead of our Storm. It was ugly stuff. And you get the classic people being like, "Oh, GG, game's done," sort of thing. But Batrider is like an Omega laner that doesn't scale well compared to other mids. I mean, versus Storm, just think
especially versus Storm.
Especially versus Storm, yeah. Sure, he's got lasso, but any Batrider from any position has lasso. It doesn't matter if you're, may as well be support. In terms of dealing with Storm Spirit, you've got 1 spell. So we basically comfortably came back into the game, and by the end, Storm was way stronger than Bat. That's just the way heroes work. So... And do think about that, because don't let yourself be demoralized by bad laning. Heroes are naturally stronger than others in lane, so...
Should we then discuss what Storm should have done to not... Well, obviously they did well to recover after the laning stage, but what should they have done better in the laning stage?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Yeah, let's go mid lane then. How would... I was about to ask the question, what would you do as a Storm Spirit laning against Bat? But that's pretty hard.
You'd buy a stick, a wand.
Yeah, for sure. Buy a wand. Yeah, that's to be fair. Yeah, I don't know if our Storm bought a wand, but if he didn't, he should have. And we've already mentioned about using spells. Obviously, just like someone like Storm, and this goes for a lot of mid heroes that usually have wave clear. Stacking is underdone. I'm not sure if that's even a word, but like underutilized, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're worried about dying in the lane, you get the creeps whenever they're near your tower and you're safe. Then other than that, head into the jungle, stack, clear your creep waves with your remnant and your, I forget what it's called, the passive.
Overload,
yeah. Use those to get any creep you can from the jungle, or even stack the jungle so that when you hit 6, you can start clearing it. But don't just stand around on your tower doing nothing while Bat happily hits creeps in the middle of the river.
Well, both mid lanes have access to a very easy to get to stacking camp, to where you can stack it and not really miss any experience from the wave.
Yeah, definitely.
Dire up the hill, and then it's Radiance just like right there.
Round the corner of trees. Yeah. If you watch high level mids, they're sort of movement, so they can move so well in terms of nuke the creep wave, stack the camp, and then look for the rune top all in one swift movement and not really miss any CS. And like you say, especially if you're losing, if you're in a bad matchup mid, you don't just want to like stick around, right? Mid, waiting to trade hits or contest every last hit if you can't. So like exactly like you said, just nuke the wave and then get out basically.
Yeah, you gotta know the clock. You gotta look at the timer and be like, oh, this is 30 seconds before power runes. Okay, this wave, I'm gonna use my spells on. I'm gonna push it out. That means that the enemy mid laner has to either make a decision between losing the mid wave experience or stacking and looking for the power rune. So, and then you can stack your camp, and I guess the Dire would go to the top rune and the Radiant would go to the bottom rune to check.
Yeah, definitely. And also, you can win mid without ever having to right click the enemy carry, like or the enemy mid, sorry. In theory, I'm thinking something like, say, if you're this is a poor example because Lena actually does really well in lane versus Huskar. But say I'm thinking of a classic strong laner that you'd think of something like a Huskar. If you're a hero that can nuke waves really quick, you don't even have to bother laning against Huskar. You can literally just nuke the wave, farm that super close jungle camp, and repeat. Because Huskar can't clear waves well. He doesn't have a way of clearing waves. He has to right click them down.
Shadow Fiend's another great example. You just raise the wave and leave.
Yeah, literally, yeah. Say I'm going to just throw out like TA versus Huskar, a matchup that's plagued me. But anyway, if you're a TA and if you can just nuke the waves with your Psyblades, obviously easier said than done versus a Huskar, and get out. Huskar can't follow you into the jungle. He can't, because he has to right click the waves down individually with his burning spears, which takes way longer. So even in these terrible matchups, you can actually outfarm just by nuking and then going to the jungle. So that's definitely, a good point.
Yeah, you can just get, so what you said, just out of farming efficiency, you can salvage a lane, even if you get harassed or maybe even die once. If you just get your creeps, hit under tower, hit the jungle camps. It seems like a lot of the mid laners nowadays have very good clear between, Viper, Nether Toxin, or Razor passive. Seems to be people are really valuing the wave clear.
Yeah.
Another good tip, I'd say, for mid heroes, if you're the right type of hero, is perhaps you get an early rune like a haste rune, or you hit 6 and you've got some key spell available to you now. If the mid lane is not safe for you to stay, go to another lane, make kills happen. Often you can recover in the mid lane by, say, finding a haste rune, running top, getting a kill, TPing back to lane. And suddenly the golden XP are looking much more favourable to you than they were before. Yeah,
certainly. Another point as well, is rewarding the mid lane at night. Oftentimes you'll get a ward at the start of the game from one of your supports probably, and you can plop that down wherever you want. That's basically up to you. There's different spots, but make sure you buy yourself a ward again when it gets to nighttime, because especially if you're in a bad lane, it only needs probably +1 or not even a +1 sometimes to kill you. So make sure you reward the mid lane at night. I can't tell you how important that is. It's so easy to get ganked at nighttime. So yeah, that's just a little pointer. And also, we'll move on to off lane. If you want a great example of winning the lane, well, not necessarily winning, but how to deal with a bad lane, there are some cool. There's some cool Funkerfowl videos. He does some mid lane guides. He's like a EU pub stomper sort of person. But I know I say this because in all of his mid guides, he always picks his mid. He first picks his mid in order to be counterpicked, to give him the best sort of conditions to give the mid guide. So there are some real gems on YouTube of him playing Tinker versus Brood, which is a terrible matchup for Tinker, or doing TA versus Viper, which is a really bad matchup for TA. And like the way he deals with those lanes, largely through stacking, he's like a stack god, especially on Tinker, is amazing. So they're definitely worth watching if you want some like actual way evidence of crushing or recovering from mid from a bad lane. So definitely check those out if you have time. They're really good.
That was Funkafel.
Funkafel, yeah.
Funkafel.
You should maybe put a link to some of his content in
the
descriptions.
I should. I tell you what, I'll in the description possibly I might mention the name, but in the Discord I'll post the actual videos. So yeah, once this episode
join
goes
the Discord,
live,
everybody.
Yep, join the Discord and you'll find links to all the this material.
Perks already just after joining the Discord.
The Discord's been great recently. We've got loads of new faces. Everyone's talking about Dota, talking about other things. Really enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely. It is really cool. I dare say the word community, but there you are. It's building.
Ace, yeah. We hit 50.
That's huge. 50, big numbers. Although we've got B1K with like 3...
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention that.
A million alternate accounts. Like, what's going on?
The poor guy can't keep track of his passwords.
Yeah.
But shout out to him. He's been active, asking questions in the Dota question channel. Getting them answered. It's good to see.
For sure, yeah. Now it's just a matter of time before all of the like medal bink photos come through. I look forward to those. So moving on from mid, off lane is probably the lane where you're going to run into them. Well, actually, to be fair, I don't really know. Because sometimes you come up against these real awful like mega aids off laners that just can crush. But I feel like recently more and more people are starting to roam more and even tri lane a bit. So the off lane is turning a little bit more into the hard lane. So we'll jump there. I know we've got some notes. I don't know if one of you want to start us off a little bit of things to do if you, as an off laner, if you've got a bad lane.
I think off lane's the toughest to recover.
Yeah.
If I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I feel like if you're an off lane, you get crushed. Sometimes you just can turn into a support if you're not careful.
Yeah, especially if the other team is like competent at keeping the equilibrium outside the tower. You can feel very sad. What's another way? I mean, that you just can't do anything. But it's like what we said, you can try and pull the creeps. I mean, you got to try something, right?
Yeah.
There are even times, if you pull the wave and you die doing it, it's still going to actually be a net benefit to you because by the time you either TP or walk back down, they're going to have a double wave pushing into you.
Yeah. Just to latch on to what you said about trying something. I had a game today where I was a Shadow Shaman with a Sand King and we were against a Grimstroke Jug lane. And this Grimstroke Jug lane, they were just spinning. Jug would get reasonably close to us. Grimstroke would cast Inkswell on him and he'd start spinning at the same time. So obviously I can't like Hex. We can't Burrow Strike him. And they'd basically just run one of us down. Oftentimes it'd be me playing Shadow Shaman because obviously the Sand King can at least Burrow Strike out of the way of the Inkswell's done. And in that game, basically, we did what probably a lot of bad Dota players would do. And we basically just battered our head against the wall, trying to contest this Jug farm. Exactly. Yeah, like trying to contest the combo and just dying. And I think I died 3 times in lane, which is just like ultimate compounding. And this Jug not only had free farm, but he also had, he had 3 kills at like 5 minutes or something. I don't know if it was that bad, but it was pretty bad. So like Adam says, like try something. If I could go back in time to that game, I'd be doing all sorts of stuff. Weird, like hard camp pulls to our creep, pulling the lane, like, going in between their tier 1 and 2 and getting a big creep train to follow me back to our tower. All sorts of stuff. Like think outside the box. If you know that if you just mindlessly play out a lane, you're going to get crushed, then don't mindlessly play out a game.
Yeah.
Try and do stuff, basically.
Or in that situation, you at least stack because you have a Sand King, right? He can use Sandstorm on the wave. Or exactly, you can smoke for mid. It's like Grimstroke Jug. There's not a lot you're going to do in that lane as Shaman Sand King. Even if you get the stun off first, he's just going to Inkswell, right? And
Inkswell and is just so good at turning a gank, not even a gank, but an attempted kill around.
Yeah, I don't think you can complete a kill in that lane if the Inkswell gets cast, because then it's just going to go off, and then he'll spin after.
Yeah.
So that's a situation where you just try and get some relevant XP and levels.
And do anything you can to get the creep wave to push into your tower. Because when you're an offlaner and the creep wave comes under your tower, even if you can't get all the assets, it's such a good feeling of getting some gold and some XP.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, is that a note? I just said that. I didn't realize. I just basically quoted that double wave thing. Here I was thinking.
Which one?
The even if you die.
Oh, right.
Like
you guys are on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I just said that. I was like, I'm smart. And here it is right here in the note. The exact wording almost. Yikes. I guess, I mean, this all comes back down to is know your hero, like know your power spike, or like what you're supposed to be doing. I guess we're talking about off lane right now, but when I played a game yesterday as Naga, so we had a duo lane of Naga and Lion, which is pretty bad just in a vacuum, right? Because Lion's bad early, and then Naga needs levels and farm. I mean, she's got 49 base damage. She's not going to really do a whole bunch.
Yeah.
I guess 45 base damage. And so I first picked Naga, I think. So the enemy offlane was support Gyro and 3-position Rubik, which is also, I mean, that doesn't sound like a great lane, but it's pretty good in terms of against our lane. Like a Naga, as I said, has 49 damage, and then if you get Fade Bolted, you're not going to really get any creeps. And then like they pick Gyro because Gyro's good against Naga with just running up to you and was that Rocket Barrage or So I think I died twice in that lane, and even the Rubik flamed. I mean, he was even like, I'm so much better than both of you. Like he took the time to type that out. That was pretty funny. Yeah, and it's just like in my head I'm just thinking like this laning stage doesn't matter, right? You know, all I need to do is get some levels, and then I can just take over the whole map, farm the whole map. And that's basically what happened, you know?
Yeah, you're just trying to make sure you don't lose too badly.
Yeah, it's like we didn't lose our tier 1 tower. Eventually, something's going to happen on the map where either a Gyro or Rubik's going to have to leave. So that's what happened. Gyro went somewhere else to try and make something happen because he thought, oh, well, we've killed Lion twice and Naga twice, so we're good here. And then it's just like, oh, well, now I just get a 1v1 and I can recover a little bit, and then you do your Naga thing, you know? Push waves, get free farm safely, and then
is somehow a new Naga doing the same old thing.
Yeah, new Naga, same story. Ended with 750 GPM, and I don't know. It's just you just got to know where you're relevant, right? And also, I knew, okay, they have a Rubik as one of their cores. Like, what is that going to do to a Naga late game? Nothing. Yeah, it's basically going to turn into a support. So it's like, yes, I will let you flame me now in the first 10 minutes. I will let you fade belt me and think you're like a god in Dota. Like, I am so much better than you. And then I will quietly return 30 minutes later and have 4 more items than you. And now what are you going to do?
Fade bolt doesn't reduce Riptide damage.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. And then even after the game, he was just like, I was owning your divine safe laner. Like, he was even still after. It's like, oh, it's.
Yeah, but you lost.
You lost.
Yeah. It's like you were saying when you, at the start of the point when you're talking about knowing your power spikes, it's like, sure, the best way to get the amount of golden XP you need to be relevant in the game and to do what you need to do. So I'm thinking, like, in the lane I was talking about, Shadow Storm and Sanking, the point of the lane, the point of the first 10 minutes is to put ourselves in a position where Sanking has enough farm and XP to be relevant in the game and provide utility, get Blink at an okay time. Sure, the absolute best case scenario is that you just get free farm in the lane, perfect gold, perfect XP. But that going and laning is that's not the only way you can achieve that. Like Adam said, you know, if you stack loads in the farming triangle for Sanking to go and take it with Sandstorm and stuff like that, that's a way more reliable way. Sure, it's not as optimal, but a way more reliable way of getting Sanking to a decent point where he's going to be able to be relevant in the game, rather than just batting your head against a wall trying to do it this conventional laning way when that's just not working because you're against a Grimstroke Jug. So just, think about what you need to achieve in the first sort of 15 minutes. Think of the different ways you can do that, because it's not it's not simply the only way you can do it is by winning and crushing the enemy lane. There's subtleties to it.
Yeah, I guess sure. Like, it'd be great if every lane you play, you just kill the enemy offlaner 5 times, right? And you get perfect CS.
Yeah.
And then you just roll from there, but it's not going to happen. So you got to think, what are some maybe, or maybe, maybe you're playing that same lane combo and the other team makes a mistake and then you kill them over and over. I mean, it's pretty hard to kill that combo, but you can't operate under the assumption that your enemy's going to keep making mistakes. You got to think what can I do to either force some mistakes or to recover? And it's I knew with Naga, you have a built-in recovery thing. A lot of heroes have built-in. I mean, if you're an SF and you lose a lane, it's okay, I will stack camps and I can raise creeps and I'll come out fine later.
Yeah.
But some heroes don't have that. So you got to think, maybe I got to make a smoke play and get a pick. Or if you're a support, it's okay, what am I really doing here? If we can't kill here, all I'm really doing is sapping some XP. So maybe I'll go stack a camp and give some solo XP, or at least not show on the map so the enemy can maybe get baited into a dive or something, and then you show up to turn.
Yeah, definitely. Those are good points. Another thing for just in the off lane, we've been loosely covering, I suppose. If the lane's pushing into you, say they've got 2 range creeps, you know that eventually the lane will get under your tower. First of all, that's not a good time to be aggressive, but under the assumption you're in a bad lane, you're probably not going to want to be aggressive anyway, so we'll put that to one side. But also, you don't need to put yourself in a dangerous position at all, because, like I said, the lane's pushing into you. So you can stay way back, because your creeps are going to be dying before theirs, and obviously you're concerned with their creeps, the ones that are going to be giving you the bulk of your XP. So basically, just recognize where the lane's going as well. I think is important. If your lane's pushing under their tower, then fine. You can try and harass the enemy a little bit. Obviously, if it's a bad lane, that's difficult. But you know that you're going to be able to get free right clicks on them because the enemy laners are going to be concentrating on trying to get the CS. Likewise, if the lane's pushing into you, then pull way back, because you don't need to put yourself in a dangerous position to get XP and CS, because you know that soon the creeps are going to be in a much more favourable position for you. So do try and keep an eye out, and keep a bit of your mind in terms of mapping where the creeps are going to be. I think that's worth noting.
Yeah, try and think 20 seconds ahead. Where's the next? Where's the next wave going to meet? Type of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And play around it accordingly.
I might just cut the rambling way that I explained it and just have you explain it.
Well, I mean, that was just following it up.
No. I mean, I was sort of repeating myself, so it's fine.
I guess. Well, this is an aside that I just thought of. If you pick your heroes, right, you load into the game, and if you got to think how the enemy's laning and how you're laning, and that should be reflected in your item build, your initial buy. I guess we should say, if you think you're going to be harassed a whole bunch, you probably should buy extra tangos or an extra salve or something. Or with Naga, she really doesn't use a whole lot of mana, so my standard safe laner build, I probably usually have a mango, but Naga doesn't need a mango, so it's okay. Now I can kind of fit in 2 more branches and get a little bit extra stats and and maybe I can eat one of these branches later for a double tango type effect. You gotta think, how is your lane going to play out? Like if I know if the enemy has a Wind Ranger or something, that's going to be really annoying to deal with. So, I mean, it's pretty standard to get Stout Shield on a melee core, but it's like definitely a Stout Shield and definitely going to be eating some double tangos, or at least buying 6 tangos to start off.
It's really important. Don't just follow the preset guide you have. Make sure that you use at least a little bit of thought about what you need when you go into the lane, and also like your first few items. For example, if you're against a Skywrath or a Batrider, as soon as you can get that stick, don't wait and don't just follow the guide. If your guide says don't get a stick, ignore that. You need a stick in that lane.
Yeah, and that can even be reflected in your initial item build too. Like maybe you don't spend 100 gold. Maybe you go out to lane with 100 gold, so then when the bounties happen, I can buy the stick right away, type of thing. Because in type of, like a Bristleback or a Skywrath lane, a stick is probably better than 2 branches.
Also, initial buy, also like first few buys, and also just skill build as well, just general build stuff. You can build according to your lane. I know in the Discord, sorry to go there again, but it's just such good material. We had a lot of discussions about like skill builds on Doom, and this is a really good example of if you're in a good lane as Doom and you're able to sort of harass the enemy out of lane and win the lane by crushing the opponents, then you'll often see Doom's max Ethereal Blade in that situation. But if they're in a bad lane, a lane where it's tougher for them to harass the enemy out, you'll see them max Devour much more, because it gives them lots of regen, and obviously you get bonus gold. So if you're not necessarily able to just casually right click down every CS, the extra reducing the cooldown and getting the extra gold from Devour is really good, as well as the regen, obviously. That's just another great example of skill building according to the lane.
Yeah, be flexible.
Yeah, sure. Another example I've got, and man, it hurts me to talk about this hero because this is my boy and I'm like 0-8 or something. I'm on like a 7 losing streak with Meepo. But anyway, Meepo, if you've got kill potential on the enemy mid, then you're good. You can get a value point in your net. Maybe the same for Naga Siren as well. But if you don't really have a kill threat and you know you're just going to be farming, nuking down the wave and then going to jungle sort of thing, say you're in a bad lane, then you're going to be wanting for Meepo to max your poof and getting points in your passive as well. And for Naga, you're just going to be wanting to get your passive that the name escapes me for some reason, and Riptide, right? And your mirror image. Yeah, because you don't need the W for kills because you're in a difficult lane. Yeah, so think about your skill build according to your lane and stuff like that, and your initial buys as well.
I guess I'll just mention with Stick and Wand, they're not, at least when I heard BSJ explain this, Stick and Wand, it's not like a healing item. Like, sure, it gives you a burst heal when you pop it, but that's not what makes it good. It's really good for mana regen. So use your spells, use your mana, and then you get more. You can think about how many more spell casts do I get out of this. So maybe, if you're against a Bristleback or a Batrider, it does turn into a heal item. Because just the sheer amount of spells they cast.
Yeah.
But
like Zeus or something.
Yeah, if you're like against a Pango or a Clockwork, or if the Clockwork's spamming Rocket Flare, it's not going to heal you as much as a Tango would. So really, it's what turns it into a mana regen item. But that doesn't make it bad. The mana regen is very efficient off of a stick pop. So you'll get 2 or 3 more spells that you can use to secure 2 or 3 more range creeps.
The burst heal shouldn't be underrated though. So maybe it doesn't give you as much heal as a tango, but sometimes enemies get too greedy and they jump on you, not realizing you have a full stick or wand, and you can use that to turn around what would have been a bad situation.
Yeah, definitely. Nick, I don't know if you want to run through in terms of like building. I know you were talking about the spec that we saw at Stockholm.
Yeah, I think just the more general point of, so if you're a safe lane hero, you're in a losing lane, you're getting really beat down by the enemy, you can't safely farm. Sometimes it's better not to go for that first greedy item that you'd like to go in position 1 if you had a good lane. Sometimes you need to itemize differently. So maybe you have to buy some more regen, some more tangos, some more salves, some more clarities. Maybe you have to buy a range drop. Maybe you have to buy some stats. Anything that can keep you relevant in the game so that you can farm as much as you can. So the example that Stan's talking about is we're at the Stockholm Major. We had a lot of fun there. But watching LGD play, they had Arme played spec a lot. And quite a few times Arme would be in a losing lane. And what we'd see him do is he'd buy a Soul Ring on his spec, which is an unusual item. But this Soul Ring allowed him to spam Dagger. And so it wasn't the first greedy Diffusal or Radiance that you want to get on spec. It was kind of more of a utility item. But Arme was able to spam Dagger, and not only was the Dagger able to keep him safe because he'd kind of dance in and out of the trees with it, but it let him get last hits. Maybe he'd hit a range creep with his Dagger that weren't otherwise safe to get. So make sure, if you're really struggling in lane, itemize to keep you relevant in the game so that you can recover when the laning stage breaks down, or even during the laning stage, rather than just blindly follow the guide that's been set in front of you.
Yeah, Soul Ring also gives the spec some pretty relevant strength and just health regen too. So that's actually a pretty solid item.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like, thinking about my pubs, I feel like the spec in that situation is going to be like, well, it's going to be a long game, boys. Rather than going straight Radiance, I'm going to go Midas Rady.
30 minutes when I got my first item.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like we're going long, but Arme, being the much better player that he is like, wow, Soul Ring does so much. Not only does it help me now in the lane so I can spam my Dagger, exactly like you said, also just like, it's a great build-up item, and I can get more involved and all sorts with health and with strength and stuff like that.
The way he played those lanes was so clever. I think he was dire every time that I remember, and he'd be kind of flitting in and out of the trees, getting last hits near his tower when he could, but otherwise he was completely safe and completely unkillable because no one else can get in among the trees behind the tower to touch him.
Yeah. No, that's really sick. Maybe that's another one for the Discord. I'll link the VOD. Well, we'll see. We're gonna have to put a backlog of videos of these show notes now going forward.
They're worth studying for people who want to get better.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Since we have been talking mainly through the goggles of a core, I guess we talk about being a support some, but it's not all just about cores as much as we talk about it. Supports can help too.
Yeah. For safe lane, obviously the pulling is much more in play in terms of how to deal with a bad lane. Splitting the wave up is sort of not only applies to an obvious pull, but obviously some of the other stuff we've been talking about as well, like getting a creep train behind you and bringing it to your tower. Often a great way to play a hard lane is just to have your support just endlessly pull for you, right? I mean, I feel like we've talked about this before in the pod, but it's probably worth talking about a little bit before. I mean, I don't know if you want to say what doing a pull does, basically, in terms of how to deal with a bad lane. Forces the enemy to split up, and you to get creeps under your own tower and stuff like that. It's kind of self-explanatory. Yeah,
it's just if I think about it through the eyes of a carry, I always like it when the support pulls because it gets them away from me. So they're not sapping the XP.
Yeah.
But they're not.
I mean, that's the least value. That's the least value part of a pull.
It's very underrated. I think it's a huge part. I mean, they're still. I mean, they're not like being self-sacrificial because they're still getting some experience from their jungle, and then you get to safely hit under your tower and get some XP solo. I mean, one way to recover a bad lane is just to outlevel your opponent through superior creep, equilibrium, and pulling and control. So, and then maybe you lose at a equal XP footing, but if you have the XP advantage, maybe you get access to more spells that give you kill potential or something.
Yeah, definitely. Don't need to spend too much time on the pool because it's sort of like a separate thing. There's many reasons why you'd pool, but it's just another tool in your arsenal in terms of breaking up a laning stage that's difficult for you, and creating a little bit of chaos, which normalizes the playing field a little bit. I know, Nick, what were you saying about leaving the lane? You wanted to say about in terms of just like optimizing where your supports are.
If we're talking about the support, sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's better for the support to leave the lane, whether that means just go into the jungle and start stacking or go help other lanes. But if you're a support, or you notice your support is just standing there doing nothing for long periods of time, stealing your XP, then perhaps your team can be better served by that support doing other things. Pulling, as we just discussed, stacking, going to other lanes. But I would say if you have a support who's going to leave the lane for whatever reason, then I would, especially if you're in the safe lane, I'd ask them to drop a ward that lets you watch over the enemy offlaner so you can see what they're doing. Because then as soon as the enemy offlaner steps away, you know when it's safe to farm creep, or you know as the carry when you have to play a bit more cautious.
Yeah, in terms of the first point, if you know you're in an awful lane where basically all you're going to be able to do is sap what XP you can, there's no point condemning two of your heroes to that, and half the XP that the already diminished XP that you're going to get from the lane. Just have one hero camp it out and, potentially CS with some spells, get a couple range creeps or do what they can, and get the position 4 or the position 5, whatever the lane support, go elsewhere, make stuff happen elsewhere on the map.
They can go stack the jungle so that you can recover once the laning stage is done, or they can go win mid or win the bot lane, or there are a lot of things the support could be doing. Yeah,
exactly, yeah. Another thing to know, just as we move towards the end of the episode, a lot of heroes, it's good to know at what point you can basically efficiently jungle. And I've got written down some examples here. There are some obvious and some less obvious. Obviously, a hero like Drow, once you're level 6, you can jungle forever. PL is the same. You'll often see PLs sit in a lane at level 5 that's terrible because they know that they can't really jungle before they've got 6. TB, you can jungle at level 4 pretty much on Terrorblade. Storm, you can jungle at level 4. And you're also not going to run for every hero. I'm just making the point that it's worth knowing if you're on a hero that's potentially looking at a bad lane, have an idea of at what point you're able to, it becomes worth it for you to leave the lane and go to the jungle.
On that point where you just gave the example of PL sitting in lane, waiting to get that 6, sometimes it's good. That's when the time when you're trying to hit that last level before you can go jungle, that's a great time to tell your support, go do other things. I'm just going to sit and I'm going to get XP. If the support stays there, they're just going to slow you down. Tell them to go do other things. Slark hitting level 6 is another good example. I remember laning with Marco where he Slark level 6 or level 5, almost level 6, and he'll tell me in nice ways, go away so that he can hit 6, because then he can go jungle and be relevant.
Yeah, that's a super good point actually. And other heroes, I was going to say other heroes, it's level 1, but I don't want to make it sound like I'm encouraging jungling because I've been burnt by it too many times today.
The heroes that can jungle from level 1, they can be good picks, not because you want them to jungle from level 1, but sometimes they have to. So if you pick, an Enigma, pair it with some other hero to go in the offlane, but the offlane is just going horribly, you're not getting anything, what do? You send the Enigma to the jungle and the other hero just leeches XP. And it's a good back option to have. It shouldn't be what you want to do initially, but it's a good kind of back option to have if you have to.
Yeah, definitely. That's part of the advantage of some of these heroes is they have that insurance policy if they're in a really bad lane. So yeah, certain heroes are better at dealing with bad lanes than others. Like we said, if you know that they've got some super awful off lane and you're, say, last picking your carry, you're up against like Doom Undying or some really hard lane or something. It might be better to pick a hero like Terrorblade where you can retreat, you have that insurance policy of going back into the jungle. rather than picking some sort of hero that's going to be all in on the lanes, like some position 1 Weaver or something that can't jungle basically ever, and doesn't really have a catch-up mechanism. So bear that in mind, or an anti-mage or something. So that's just a thing for dealing with a bad lane in picking phase, especially when you're a carry. You're often going to know the enemy offlane that you're up against. So sometimes it's good to pick with a hero that has an insurance policy, like we've been saying.
Can I go back to a support thing real fast?
Absolutely.
Help your carry deny and last hit.
Marco's always shouting at me to do this more.
Yeah, I've just seen too many supports they kind of just stand around, and at least try and deny. You don't even have to get the deny. It just messes up the opponent getting the creep CS. Because if you're not, I guess the thought process is that they want to hide in the trees and not take any harass. But then if you're not showing up and trying to deny and help with last hits, you're basically just focusing all the enemy's attention just on your core. I just noticed that yesterday. It was like a pub game, so I didn't want to be like, hey, like, do this. But
yeah, it feels so good when you get like when you and your support, or you as the support, you both
get the double hit deny on
the
a
double hit
creep.
deny. Yeah, that's so sick. That's so good when that happens.
It's like a telepathic.
Yeah, see, if the opponent is doing that and it's just you, like your support isn't helping you with that, it's so much harder to get any creeps.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, do we want to say anything else? Do we have any closing thoughts? Closing little tipperinos or stuff?
Yeah, just even if you lose the lane, keep a positive attitude. Dota's never lost until the throne falls. I can't think of how many games where I've lost lanes, but we win the game. And at the same time, how many games where we've come out of the laning stage going, we smashed that, we won every lane, and then we lost. So laning stage is important, but it's not the end of the game. It's just the start. So
yeah, exactly. It's a means to an end. The point of Dota, the point of the laning stage is not to crush the laning stage, but just to crush the laning stage. It's for later in the game. So, it's a means to an end. It's not the end itself.
Mitigating, I mean, maybe you lose the lane, but mitigate the amount of that you lost it. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely.
Sure, you can look at the post game and maybe your mid was 3,000 gold behind the enemy mid. That's like an Omega lose the lane. But in my Naga game yesterday, the rubric was saying, oh, I destroyed you guys. Well, I went back and looked. I had like 3,100 gold. He had 3,100 gold. And it's like, Dota Buff did technically say we lost because I died and stuff. But I'll take that. I mean, coming out on even footing, of course, a hero that has really spammable spells and like high damage early on should have a decent lane against someone like a Naga. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure.
It's definitely not a 3K net worth difference. It's like so much more recoverable than what he probably thought. So just work on mitigating your losses, and then it becomes much more easier to recover. I mean, you can always come back from like 20K behind, but if you cut that, I mean, that's not ideal, but say if you just cut being 5K behind out of the laning stage to like 2.5K just off of more efficient laning practice, well, you've upped your win percentage probably 25 points.
Yeah, definitely. Mitigation, as you say, is the key. So, I mean, that's the episode done pretty much. I mean, I feel good because this is earlier than usual to finish a pod. I might get a game in after this.
Yeah, let's go, boys.
Sir.
That's a pog, yeah.
Let's go lane to put our new skills into practice.
I know, I'm feeling the game straight into a loss. Straight into a
spam
lane
guess
lose.
Nick, why aren't you helping me deny these creeps, sir? We just talked about this.
Yeah. Time for us to not put into practice all the words.
Talk is easy, action is difficult.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, that's episode 13 in the books. Hopefully, will help you. You'll think of this episode next time you're in a rough lane and think, what can I do to mitigate the damage? So, we'll be back I'm not 100% sure. I mentioned the schedule at the start of the show, the new schedule of weekly Friday episodes. There's a chance that will start this Friday, but it's unlikely. That schedule will probably start next week, so like a week on Friday. So you've probably got to sit through one more episode of an unknown release date before we get into the reliable schedule. So that's all I can say on that. So thanks to guest Nick and Adam.
Thanks for having me. A lot of fun as always.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see you again before too long. So we're off to play some Dotes. Bye.